Welcome to Mental Millennials with your host, Shelby Friesen.
Welcome back to another episode of Mental Millennials. Today I've got Paul Marlow on as a guest. On Instagram you might know him as Tall Paul. I've followed him for a while now, and he's a mental health advocate, posts a lot of useful things and stuff about his life. And I actually saw a blog post that he wrote that was about doing an MDMA therapy session or psychotherapy. I don't know the exact details, but I read it and found it interesting, and I was curious to hear more about that and some of the backstory maybe leading up to that. So today he's here, and I'll let him give a quick intro of himself, and then we'll get going.
Shelby, first of all, thank you, my man. I appreciate this. About that blog post, therapy or psychotherapy, I'm not too sure what the thing is also on that one, to actually the name of it. That was really just me on the SEO thing. What it gets more hits and links. I am, as we'll talk in a bit more, like I am mental health, yes, for sure, and that's what my goal. But I think if you can't get in front of people's eyes and treat it as a business, then how are more people going to get helped? Mm-hmm. So we can dive into that. But essentially, my story is it's been. Can I swear on this thing? I might swear accidentally.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay, cool. I won't mean to, but it probably will come out. Where am I? 3 years now, essentially since my dad passed away. And a bit before that, I dealt with some issues with an ex of mine who had some mental health struggles that she was dealing with, which then came into my life as we broke up. And that was the first time I felt the effects of mental health struggles. I realized I had anxiety my whole life prior to it, but it was just such a normal thing since I was 5. It was normal. This was like, whoa, I feel depressed. I have a little bit of PTSD. And that was all from the situation with my ex, which was new to me. And then compounding on top of that is my old man got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And so I started watching him just get frail and turn into someone I never thought he would be. He was always that young, vibrant guy. So you add the stuff with her, you add the stuff with him, and then you add essentially 2 years of that compounding, and me not knowing how to deal with it, not believing in therapy at that time. It was for me, not understanding how vital sleep is, how vital a morning routine is, how vital a lot of these things that I preach and practice now. And I went, it took a nosedive, and I wasn't happy. Happy for at least 2 or 3 years. Like, I remember one time I got a gig, and a gig is for a commercial, and it paid out like $7,000. And it's like, when you do commercials, Vancouver's a big hub for the TV and the screen. And like, you go through these rounds, and it takes like 2 to 3 weeks, depending how big it is. Sometimes it could take 4 days. But like, it was me against 400 people, then me against 30 people, then me against 3 people, and then you get it. And I was like, $6,000. And like, I got the call. I was like, okay, on to the next thing. And I didn't celebrate. And then like, I need to celebrate because like, I'm a dad, I need the money. But it was just like, it didn't resonate. There was nothing there that was like, fuck yeah, I got this. It was like, okay, what am I doing next? I got to make oatmeal. So that was a lot of my life. And that time I was like, I really hit a low at one point. I was like, I got to change this. I got to start addressing this. I don't know what it is, but I'm 32 at the time. And man, I can't be like this at 38, 40. I can't be like this at 50. Like, I won't find a wife. I won't have a steady job. Like, if I keep going like this, things aren't going to go how I want to live. So all I did was just start working on myself, morning routines, eating better, believing in therapy, going to see a therapist. And then that led into actually me thinking things are going well. But essentially it's still been like 1.5 years since I had really started focusing on my mental health, and things were way better,
Mm-hmm.
but I still didn't have that happiness. It's like the joy wasn't there. And I was like, shit, maybe I need to go on antidepressants, which is totally cool if you do. They're there for people. But I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to try something else. I don't know what it is, but let's
Mm-hmm.
see if I can think outside the box. And yeah, MDMA therapy came into my eyesight from a DM from someone on social media. I was like, all right, let's take a look at this.
So
That is how
you
I got to that point.
oh really? So you were actually debating to do antidepressants,
Oh yeah.
and then you found that instead, but you were looking instead, and that's what you decided on.
I wasn't debating. Like it was, what happened? Oh, my birthday's April 8th.
Mm-hmm.
My dad passed away May 12th. And his birthday was like, I don't know, there's like a 3-week period his birthday. So it's like his birthday, my birthday, his passing away. And actually his sister, my aunt, passed away like just after that. So I knew I had like a 6-week period coming up
Mm-hmm.
of like 4 life things. And I hadn't at that time, every time a life event that came up from the last 2 years, I would go into a depressed state for 2 weeks, one before, one after. It was like
Mm-hmm.
clockwork. I knew it was going to happen. I was like, I can't handle this one. And then I'd come off the depressed state, and the new one I'd come depressed. Like I knew it was going to happen. I was doing everything I could to try to stop it, but they weren't happening. So I would be
Mm-hmm.
in this funk for like 2 months. I was like, I can't have this happen again. So actually, I went to my therapist. I emailed my therapist saying, I'm thinking about going on antidepressants. Can I come talk to you? I went to her. She got me in within like actually 12 hours, which I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen her in a while. So I was like, dope. Talked to her, and she's like, yeah, I've been seeing you for 2 years now. I knew you when you were with your ex, da 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 da. And I don't think it's the wrong thing. That's a good mindset. Let's look into this further. Get a hold of a doctor. I'm like, okay. I left her. I hopped onto my Instagram, which I do, and Instagram stories. And I was like, I'm being honest with y'all as I'm walking down the street, because I've been pushing sleep, pushing fitness, pushing all these things to take into our body and exert and
Mm-hmm.
take up mind to that was the way to get out of anxiety and depression. And I still believe it is a great core structure we need. You just sometimes need that extra thing that we can't get ourselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I've been saying this the whole time. I might be wrong, not wrong in the sake, but I thought I could make it without going on antidepressants. But guys, here I am, and I think I am going to have to. So I'm just going to own up to it right now. This is where I'm at and where I'm going through. I didn't even ask for ideas or suggestions. I'm like, I just like, it was like 30 seconds, like, this is it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just being honest with y'all. And I had like 4 people DM me and saying, have you looked at not even MDMA therapy, essentially like with psychedelic therapy.
Right.
So psychedelics is like acid, MDMA, or psilocybin mushrooms, I believe, are the 3 main ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I'd thought about it because, like, I don't know, I listen to Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, and they talk about it for like their business and their work and personal growth. But I hadn't thought about it for actually like anxiety and depression, PTSD. And then, yeah, one close friend's like, well, if you are, I have someone who does it that I can refer you. Because I don't know if you've looked it up, but a lot of people like it's hard to find someone that can take you safely through that journey because it's not legal. So they don't advertise it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's got to be like that was my first thought. I was like, I wonder where he found this person, but it's
Yeah,
cool that you had someone so close.
got lucky.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and like also, I
Yeah.
mean, because I've used MDMA as like a party drug
Oh yeah, me
over
too.
the
It's
years,
fucking
like
fantastic.
like before. So, and I had never really thought of using it in that way because I mean, I see people use mushrooms for it all the time, but
Yeah.
that was the first time I'd ever heard of MDMA, and I was like, man, fuck. I was like, I remember using it back in the day, and I was like I can see the power of it, but I was more curious.
Yeah.
I wonder what
Well,
it did.
like you've used it, I've used it. Like party drug. It's been a long time since I have,
Hmm.
mainly because I haven't been partying. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be again. I'd rather wake up with a MDMA hangover than like a booze hangover, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, like when you're on it and like if you're at a party or whatever and you're talking and like you're really open to a conversation. You're
Hmm.
like depending how much you know the person, you're really open. Even if you don't know them and you find one thing you connect with, you're like, yo, let's have this deep conversation about this,
Mm-hmm.
loving the vibe. And or if you're with someone you like or love, you're more honest about your feelings, you're more honest about these things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like that's, think about that situation, essentially like that conversation, but take out the booze, take out the music around you, and take out everyone else that your like mind goes on. Because like when I'm on MDA, like I'm like a horny, so I'm like checking out all these chicks, and it's like great. Like really, I was like Molly is like that for me. So like the thing is, if I take away all those other things which take away my mind from like what I'm really focusing on, it's like it was just me and my therapist talking with the substance through me, which would make me so more open and vulnerable to things that I would be too ashamed of and afraid of to talk to them in person. Even though they're my therapist, when you're sober, you're like, I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
that thing in the back of my head, like, I'm not going to say that. Let's leave it for the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just more conducive to have a free flowing conversation. And also, I'm assuming it brought up some things that I wouldn't have thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the MDA kind of shuffles things around in your body and allows them to creep through.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say I didn't just go see my therapist and do one session. We did 9 normal therapy sessions prior to, so she could get to understand me, get to
And
know my past and know everything. So she had an idea of what we were getting into.
that was a different therapist than the one you've been seeing for the couple
Yeah,
years. Yeah, so you
yeah,
did a
that
bunch
was it.
so she could like figure it out
Yeah,
or could
yeah.
get like an idea. And was like, did you guys pick like one thing, like through those 9 sessions? Did you kind of like narrow down an area she was going to focus specifically on when you did
Yeah,
the MDMA
exactly. That,
session?
and that was a lot of the reasons for the 9 that she went over with me, and I see them now definitely more clearly. Is first of all, she had to feel comfortable with me, and I had to feel comfortable with her.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in that state, if there's some wall up and you don't really trust the person, then you're not going to get the most out of it. Second of all, I'm a 6'7" dude, and she is like a 5'2" female. She had to feel comfortable that I wasn't going to be some creep, and
Mm-hmm.
that's totally like it has to be. You got to think about those things too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was the first thing, and then she was like, "Okay, I'm comfortable." And then it was the therapy sessions were to dive into what areas need to be talked about. Her first thought was actually we're going to do acid, which is like a real journey.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading up on it a bit more. Essentially, that'd be like a 10 to 12-hour therapy session journey throughout the day. And it really shakes you up, it hits things.
Mm-hmm.
But the more she talked and got to learn about me, she's like, no, there's some emotional things that you have to deal with your ex and how you see yourself or saw yourself as a child. So the 3 areas that we kind of focused on were my dad passing, the situation with my ex and how it ended. And she was my first long-term girlfriend too, so there was some stuff with that. I was
Mm-hmm.
29, and that was my first long-term girlfriend. And then how I see my past life now as a kid growing up through sports, being really tall and having pressure on me. So it's like those 3 main areas that was our guide.
Okay.
However, though, when you go into these things, these psychedelic journeys, whether it be acid, MDMA, or mushrooms, there is the biggest thing that she preached, and these books that I've been reading that they preach is don't go in with any predetermined conversations or thinkings of what's going to happen,
Yeah, kind of like no
because
expectations.
yeah, you want it to flow, you want it to naturally come. And if you go in thinking I need to do this, I need to do this, I think what happens is the drug can take you in a different way. And if your mind is fighting what's happening, then first of all, you won't get as much out of it. Second of all, you could go into a dark place, and you don't want to be in a dark place when you're under these influences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool though. Like, and so she does all the different types of. You can do any of the psychedelic drugs. She'll actually choose what she thinks is best for you.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm reading a book right now. I forget the name of it, and I'm pretty sure like she's a therapist. She actually is, for just perennial therapy. She's gotten her associate degree, whatever it may be. And then she decided that this side of therapy she thought was more helpful. And so she's actually worked with Dr. Gabor Mate. I believe that's how you say his name. And he's very big into it. He works with MAPS, who is a big association. I forget what it stands for. They're in the North America, so they're states and Canada, and they're pushing for psilocybin and MDMA therapy like through the government. Like they're the biggest conglomerate that is working towards it right now, trying to legalize these things. So she has worked with people in there on her own journeys, and she's taking her own journeys from other therapists. So what I believe is they have to do is they have to go and obviously have the therapy before their own studying to be therapists. And then from what I've read is to get where she was able to feel comfortable to help me, she had to go through her own journeys with therapy for people to help her, and then kind of stand in on other ones, because it's really a guiding thing once you're in these 6 hours. Therapy is to guide the person and not push, and be there for them. And yeah, so she I believe she's done all of them and done many sessions with other people, and I believe she's done them with herself, being the person being on the other end too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's super
Yeah.
cool. Well, and for you, would you do it like, I guess, would you recommend it to other people? Or like, I know I saw you post about the price and it was a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I mean, I've done a lot of stuff in the holistic, kind of space and things that aren't obviously covered by medical. And I know, there's things I've spent hundreds of dollars on or thousands and gone, that was maybe, I don't think I'd do that again. I didn't really get much, or sometimes it's really useful. So I was curious to see what your thought was on it. Like if you found it very valuable, and if you could go back in time, would you do it again?
So there's two areas of that for like my anxiety and depression, and how I said I wasn't feeling joy and all this stuff. And like my life was 3 years of really weird situation I ever thought I would be. That was the catalyst that took me out of that. Okay. So I don't think if I did it, I don't think I'd be in the same mental place I am today. So I would 100% do it for that. Second of all, I think it was a big personal growth area for me, understanding my weaknesses. Not even my strengths, mainly seeing my weaknesses, seeing my fear to commit, my understanding my social anxiety, and accepting it and learning how to change my ways. And that's what happened a lot of our session. So for that, and personal growth, like I wouldn't have started Never Alone without it. Like really, like the next weeks afterward, when I put it into it. And I stopped. There were a lot of things that held me back, and I would allow them to hold me back before I did this session. And afterwards, I would think about the things that would make me hold it back. Like I would think about doing something I wanted to do, and then usually within a couple hours, I would talk myself out of it to be like, oh no, that's not. I can't really complete. Da 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 da. After the journey, I was like, no, I can. Why not try and just take it one day at a time? And there we go. And so Never Alone wouldn't be here. And I've been thinking about actually a lot lately. I want to do another one, not for my mental health per se, but just for personal growth, to understand myself a bit more. And I find that it actually helped me overcome some barriers that were ahead of me that I was too afraid to hurdle. And with Never Alone, starting my small business, kind of having a side business hustle now in digital marketing. I'm 35, but I've never gone this far in a business sake to like on my own, and everything is on me. So I know there's some stuff that has held me back from the last 34 of my years, which kept me to this point of not moving forward. And I think if I go and do something and work with someone, I can address those and kind of just, clear the way so I can grow and do what I really want to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely got a lot of value out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, just alone starting your business and everything else, that's awesome. And I get one more question about it, I guess, for the whole thing. The aftermath of it, Like you did the
Mhm.
9 sessions, then you did, how long was the therapy session you did when you were like induced or?
So essentially we started like 9 a.m. because it was supposed to be around a 6, 7 hours was the general time frame, she said, for that.
Mhm.
And so you're just there just chatting, listening to music, talking for that time. But essentially what you would know, like, so I took one pill,
Mhm.
125 milligrams, I think was like, if I was to go out partying at night, that's what I would take.
Mhm.
And then halfway through, I took another pill. So I took a total of 2 pills, which isn't like crazy, my dose. But
Mhm.
like if you're really out there and you're just using it as a party drug, that's not the craziest thing in the world to do. Um, and that was it. Yeah, then it was actually 6 hours. And then you kind of obviously at nighttime, you come down and you have that usual MDMA low. It wasn't
Mhm.
really low because you didn't have the booze hangover. So you just weren't, it was just the general like, okay. But really, it was the next 3 days, which were the oddest things. It was super weird. Um, and it's super hard to explain. It's kind of one of those things that once you've done it, you get it. And if not, you're like, okay. But you're not really there.
Mhm.
And you're not there. Like I didn't feel afraid or uncomfortable, but I felt like I didn't want to do the things I would usually do those days, but I didn't want to hide and do nothing.
Yeah, it's you're kind of like just floating around in the middle
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, you were floating in the middle and just like, okay, yeah. And I didn't want to be around a bunch of people, not at all, because I didn't want to have a small talk conversation. Like it felt awkward.
Mhm.
But my old comfort place was like sitting in my room by myself working or watching TV, and I didn't want to do that. So I was kind of shedding my old self because it didn't feel comfortable. I didn't want that, but I wasn't fully ready to be integrated into society. So like I went biking, I went for walks, I saw people, and I was out in nature. But yeah, it was 3 days of a very weird space. Weird space.
Yeah, just like a kind of the comeback from it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and a change of mind. Like there was
Right.
definitely a change of mindset from those 6 hours, and my mind knew that, but it wasn't ready. I don't know. There is some stuff, but yeah, it was super
Yeah.
super crazy. Yeah,
Almost just like 3 days of contemplation or something. You just kind of
yeah, yeah,
processing everything that happened.
definitely. And you're like just stuck in the middle.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after that, it's you got to work and that's when you started to launch Never Alone or like really get it out there.
Yeah, Never Alone was it
Because I
even
seen
going?
you posting
Yeah,
about it for a while.
Never Alone was like in the process and it was moving.
Mhm.
Um, but what I mean by launching it, it was like it was in the process of moving and it was what I was comfortable with at that time.
Mhm.
To like the ability to like create something and talk about it and like so like this hoodie to go make it and only interact with your like supplier and only interact with your um designer is fine because it's like me and her, me and my designer. And then to create something online is me on online. But to actually like get them and be like, here, take this person and pay me money is a whole different subject.
Mhm.
Because you're like, yes, I've made this and it's going towards the mental health community. I want you to talk about your Never Alone story, and I'm cool talking online and doing something, but like once you actually have a visual like give to someone and get them to take it and then have their insights on it and have their comments, that's like a whole different like ball game. Like, and I don't
Mhm.
know if I would have been able to take that jump. I probably would have bailed and ditched before I got the hoodies actually made. Like
Mhm.
I would have created everything till then with this great idea and plan, but like actually paying like $10,000 to get 500 hoodies, it wouldn't even been that. But like, if I get them and like I have to go and give it to someone once they buy it and they give me their hard-earned money, that's the scary part for me.
Mhm.
That was, and if I didn't do this, I don't think I would have. I would have came up with an excuse not to go forward.
Yeah, I think it's also um I mean, that definitely is the hard part of any business, I think, to launch, especially when you're sort of like the face of it. Um, a lot of
Yeah,
people like similar in one of my previous businesses, we built trucks and suspension parts, but I wasn't the face of the business. I didn't have to say shit. I just made this stuff and
yeah,
people bought it and it was whatever. But when then coming to doing this, like with the podcast, I had very similar to you where I like did it all, but then once I had to go, okay, like I actually have to talk to somebody now. And then
Yeah.
I got to post it somewhere. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
okay. So that's where it gets scary. And similar for you, you know, you are the face of it and you've created that and you're pushing it and you're interacting with these people. So
Hmm.
like doing the back end is easy, getting everything set up. But then once you have to actually get it out there.
Well, let's not say it's easy because it was a
Yeah.
fucking learning experience.
Yeah, true.
But it was safe because I could mess
Yeah.
up. I didn't have to tell people like it
Hmm.
couldn't like I remember I had some times where it was like there was it was like to get these hoodies done, obviously there's a back and forth. Like they create one and then I get it. And then like the sleeves are too short, then they go back and through. And I had a period where it was like bang, 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 on. Once I got it, I got back to them through. And there was this one where it was so like out there for me. I was like, I got it. And I remember waiting 4 weeks before replying to them to make the next step. And that was it. Like it was in my uncomfortable zone. And I could wait 4 weeks because no one knew what was going on and I could hide
Hmm.
it. But in the back of my head, it was like, you idiot, get going. You're wasting 4 weeks. You know, you're not letting the ball keep rolling.
Hmm.
Um, but then putting it out there, like once it's out there and I put it out there to buy, like I can't wait 4 weeks to
Yeah.
ship. I can't wait all this time. So yeah. And also doing everything by myself.
Right.
Like everything has been by myself. So it's been a lot of learning and a lot of areas where I could just, bail and keep personal training for whatever on the side and not fall through. But I didn't.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm happy that you did. Um,
Thank you.
and so like, where do you see, like right now, you can buy them online
Hmm.
and it's all like launched. So what's your
Hmm.
kind of plan with it for the future now? Because how, like I've seen you posting too about having people like guest write or they'll share their
Hmm.
story on your blog.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I guess just the
um,
overall business approach to it, like what's your goal with it if you want to share that?
It's adapting and learning
Yeah.
is really the biggest thing, and like that's what I did prior to launching. And now that I've launched, I'm glad I was able to do that because now I'm comfortable doing it while it's live.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I've come to the realization in the last week that fashion and clothing sales is something that for some reason I've wanted to get into for the last 12 years, and this is my first thing to learn to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned a lot, which I'm stoked for. Um, but I do also know how I launched this. COVID kind of messed up my plan, but I learned from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the hoodie sales and this can be a good piece for it, but it's not the forefront that I want to have. And the blog and Never Alone Stories really are, I think, something. If I keep it up for next year or two, 1 week, one blog to every 1 to 2 weeks of someone sharing their story, and people come in and want to tell them, I think that is where a lot of help, information, guidance, and acceptance of mental health struggles of people from no matter who they are can be shared, and people can grow from those. I think those stories are really valuable. So yeah, definitely. I'm actually separating my site in the next 2 weeks. Right
Okay.
now, it's e-commerce on top of the blog. I'm separating the blog, putting it forward first, and the e-commerce will be there, but it's going to be a secondary page because once these are sold out, the 500, I'm going to maybe look at kind of like a Supreme style way of creating clothing. Kind of do one-off pieces like 100 t-shirts or tank tops with Never Alone,
Mm,
and I still want to keep the style up, and I want to keep like they're very nice. It's not merch, it's a nice piece of clothing, which is
mm-hmm.
the biggest thing I want to do in the mental health realm, because mental health clothes are merch in my mind, super cheap, and it just from what I saw of other people's, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
keep that up. But I think for me, business wise, financially, like it's the smartest move at this time. Until probably a year or two from now, I'll have a better picture and plan. And I do want to set pieces, but I can't. I need a team for that. And
Mm-hmm.
right now, I just don't have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that approach. Like I think too when people read the stories and everything and that vision of it, they'll connect with it and that'll, you
Hmm.
know, if that lands with them and they connect with it, they'll obviously buy the clothing. And
Yeah.
the idea of the set pieces I think is awesome as well because it's not just like, hey, anybody can just buy this shirt anytime. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, I've got 100 of these. If you want one, this is it. This is all you get.
Pre-order, da 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 da. Yeah, get it to them. Make it really like, yeah. Sorry, my pods are
Oh, it's
full.
all good.
Um, but yeah, no, that's the idea, and make it like, then really get into the 100 pieces. Get as much into them. Make them the best that I can. Back them to something. So there's always something going towards a mental health initiative or a new project I have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
collaborations and stuff.
yeah. There's a lot of learning to do in it, but having 300 hoodies still in my mom's office waiting to move them, and yeah, just not how I want to do things at the moment or can afford to.
Yeah, because even smaller quantity stuff too, like even if you just did 50 to start or maybe even 20 or something and whatever, you sold them out right away, but people start to get the idea.
Yeah,
I think that's,
yeah.
and it makes it seem more like art. It's not just like they're getting, it's like an art. People will make 5 of something and then
Hmm.
I kind of like that.
Hmm. So yeah, no, it's first I got to get these off. I'm doing a campaign soon on Facebook, hopefully getting them moved on before the end of the year, and then I
Hmm.
can start 2021 with kind of
Some new
quarterly
ideas.
goals and plans, and yeah. But the Never Alone stories, for sure, blogs. Really want to put the money in to actually get people to create YouTube videos for them, to get videographers in and tell that story in a video.
Oh,
So
video
the
format.
blogs and videos format work together, and I think then we can create that into Instagram and all these other channels, where that's the biggest goal for Never Alone, is just to bring mental health initiative talk into
Hmm.
2020. I don't think a lot of companies get how to interact with the youth
Hmm.
and social media, and it just doesn't come across as, I think, as good as it could.
No, exactly. Well, I like that. You're definitely taking the like a wide approach and especially like you said, you're doing the digital marketing and stuff now. So like you're gonna have the best way to know how to get it all out there so people can actually see it and use it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of testing right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's it. Always learning.
Awesome. Well, yeah, man, I'm it's cool to hear about everything, like the journey, your business, all that stuff. I'm gonna have to grab a hoodie, that's for sure, before they're gone.
Yeah, you should
Um,
really.
and then yeah, is there anything else that you want to chat about or say or
No, like that's it. I'm stoked. Obviously, with the MDMA and psychedelics, I just want to say that it is illegal.
Mhm.
What I did was illegal. I was very lucky to find someone who knew what they were doing. I don't suggest you just grab someone and say, "Hey, let's do this." Find someone who knows it, a therapist who's done it before. Also, go to that therapist prior to for a few sessions if you can. I read some stories where people just reached out to a therapist and they said, "Yeah, let's do it," and they went and they popped the molly and they did their thing. I think there's so much more value that that therapist knows your backstory and is able to spend some time with you for like 5 or 6 sessions and get
right.
to know you as a human before you do this journey. But yeah, hopefully, like I said, they're really pushing it. Maps is, and Tim Ferriss actually is the psychedelics and therapy, and hopefully, I don't know, 22, 23, it'll be more acceptable and out there for people to use. Luckily, we're
Mhm.
in Canada and we're a bit more open to things, so hopefully we'll get it first.
Mhm.
But yeah, other than that, just talk about your mental health, but always look for actionable ways to help yourself. You can talk only so much. If you're not ready to take day-to-day action, then it's gonna be a hard journey getting out.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. You got to take the action.
Hmm.
Awesome. Okay, well, Matt, I appreciate you coming on. It was awesome to hear
No
about
problem.
everything and where you're going, and we'll follow along. And I'll do a little email to my list about your hoodies and stuff too. So hopefully you
That'd
can
be awesome,
get some
man. I'd
people
be
to grab
stoked for
some.
that,
Yeah.
for sure.
So
Thank you.
we'll touch base and I'm sure we'll be
Definitely,
in touch.
definitely.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, Shelby, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for coming out.
Definitely.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.